Your Honor, it's a retroperitoneal hematoma, an unmistakable diagnosis.
That's impressive. Your Honor, she must have spent all night Googling.
Court laughed at homeless woman's medical knowledge. Then the doctor recognized her. Dr. Catherine Morse adjusted her threadbare coat in the cramped courtroom at 9:00 a.m. on Wednesday morning, her once steady surgeon's hands now trembling from malnutrition as she prepared to represent herself in small claims court. In 30 minutes, when Chief of Surgery Dr. James Harrison walked through those doors, her shattered world would collide with everything she'd lost. Catherine, 45, appears to be just another homeless person seeking justice through an overburdened legal system, but her precise medical vocabulary and clinical assessment of her injuries revealed training that expensive law degrees can't replicate. Her cardboard sign and shopping cart conceal hands that once performed miracles in operating rooms. What happened in Judge Morrison's courtroom would expose how quickly society discards its heroes when they fall from grace, and how one doctor's recognition would prove that expertise doesn't disappear just because circumstances destroy everything else. Municipal Courtroom 3B in downtown Seattle, a cramped, understaffed venue where small claims disputes play out between citizens who can't afford real attorneys and corporations represented by junior lawyers treating these cases as inconvenient training exercises. The fluorescent-lit courtroom processes dozens of cases daily, with Judge Morrison maintaining order through impatience rather than interest. The legal environment operates on appearance-based credibility. Well-dressed attorneys command respect, while pro se litigants face skepticism regardless of their actual knowledge or legitimate claims. Homeless individuals rarely receive fair hearings, as their appearance triggers assumptions about intelligence, honesty, and worthiness that influence legal outcomes before evidence is presented. Recent budget cuts have reduced court resources while increasing caseloads, creating hostile environments where judges rush through proceedings and attorneys show obvious disdain for cases involving plaintiffs who can't pay substantial fees. This setting represents how legal systems often fail society's most vulnerable members when they need justice most. Catherine graduated top of her class from Harvard Medical School, becoming one of the youngest female cardiothoracic surgeons at Seattle Presbyterian Hospital. Her innovative surgical techniques and compassionate patient care earned national recognition, speaking engagements and research grants that established her as rising star in cardiac surgery. She saved hundreds of lives through procedures that other surgeons deemed impossible, building reputation for accepting hopeless cases and achieving miraculous outcomes. Catherine's precision, intelligence, and dedication made her irreplaceable until one devastating malpractice lawsuit destroyed everything she'd worked to achieve through years of sacrifice and exceptional service. After losing a wrongful death lawsuit that bankrupted her despite questionable evidence, Catherine lost her medical license, home savings, and professional relationships that had defined her identity for 20 years. Insurance companies and medical boards abandoned her to protect their own interests, leaving her homeless and unemployable despite her exceptional skills and lifetime of healing others. She lives in shelters, eats at soup kitchens, and struggles with depression while maintaining hope that justice might eventually restore her life and career that malicious litigation destroyed through legal system manipulation. Despite her circumstances, Catherine retains complete medical knowledge and diagnostic abilities that homelessness cannot erase. Her surgical precision remains intact through muscle memory and intellectual training that transcends her current situation. Catherine can assess injuries, understand complex medical procedures, and communicate in clinical terminology that reveals her authentic expertise to anyone qualified to recognize it. Her greatest strength is maintaining dignity and compassion despite society's rejection, using medical knowledge to help other homeless individuals while fighting for justice through legal system that treats her as disposable rather than recognizing her value and expertise. Catherine must represent herself in court against a corporate defendant whose attorneys dismiss her medical knowledge as fraudulent despite its obvious authenticity and relevance to her injury claim, requiring expert medical testimony that she cannot afford to purchase. The primary obstacle is legal system prejudice that judges credibility by appearance rather than actual expertise, preventing Catherine from effectively presenting medical evidence that would prove her case if properly evaluated by qualified professionals willing to recognize her authentic knowledge. The stakes involve both financial survival and personal dignity. Winning her case provides essential compensation for medical bills and living expenses, while losing confirms society's judgment that her expertise is worthless because her circumstances don't match expectations about medical professionals and their social standing. This conflict represents broader injustices facing qualified individuals whose circumstances obscure their capabilities when systems judge value by appearance rather than actual knowledge and expertise that homelessness cannot eliminate or invalidate. Catherine's decision to pursue legal action against SeaTac Transit Authority began when their bus struck her wheelchair-bound friend Marcus during a routine medical appointment, causing injuries that Catherine's surgical training immediately recognized as life-threatening despite paramedics' misdiagnosis and inadequate treatment. Massive internal bleeding from splenic laceration with probable hemodynamic instability, Catherine told the emergency room staff, but her homeless appearance caused medical personnel to dismiss her assessment until Marcus nearly died from exactly the complications she'd predicted through clinical observation. The incident crystallized everything wrong with society's treatment of homeless individuals. Her medical expertise could save lives, but her appearance prevented anyone from taking her seriously until tragedies proved her knowledge authentic and valuable. "If I don't fight this," Catherine told herself while filing legal papers at the courthouse's self-help center, "they'll keep treating homeless people like we're invisible until someone dies, because qualified help was dismissed as worthless." Her lawsuit represented more than financial compensation for Marcus's injuries. It was vindication of her medical expertise and challenge to systemic prejudice that discarded qualified professionals when circumstances changed their social status, but not their knowledge or capabilities. Catherine prepared for court with the same precision she'd once applied to surgical procedures, researching legal precedents and medical evidence that would prove SeaTac Transit's negligence while demonstrating her authentic expertise despite opposing counsel's expected character attacks. Her preparation included detailed medical documentation of Marcus's injuries, using clinical terminology and diagnostic accuracy that law school couldn't teach, but medical school had drilled into her consciousness through years of training and practice. Most critically, Catherine prepared for the inevitable attacks on her credibility, based on appearance rather than knowledge developing strategies to prove her medical expertise through specific technical information that only qualified doctors could possess or articulate accurately. Her legal research revealed previous cases where homeless individuals had been denied justice through appearance-based prejudice, providing precedents that might protect her right to present medical evidence regardless of her current circumstances or social status. Catherine also prepared psychologically for courtroom humiliation that would test every lesson medical training had taught her about maintaining composure under pressure while advocating for patients who needed her expertise to survive or receive appropriate care. Her documentation strategy emphasized objective medical facts that could be verified through hospital records and expert consultation, creating evidence trail that would validate her medical knowledge even if opposing counsel successfully attacked her personal circumstances and appearance. Catherine arrived at the courthouse early, using extra time to review her medical documentation and legal arguments, while observing courtroom procedures that would determine whether justice was possible for homeless individuals facing corporate defendants with unlimited legal resources. Clerk Maria Santos processed her paperwork professionally, while obviously struggling with the contrast between Catherine's appearance and her sophisticated legal preparation that suggested education and experience beyond typical pro se litigants. Ms. Morse, your medical documentation is quite detailed, Santos observed while reviewing Catherine's filing that included technical terminology and clinical analysis that demonstrated authentic expertise despite her obvious poverty and homeless status. Defense attorney Richard Chen arrived with confidence that suggested easy victory over homeless plaintiff who couldn't afford legal representation or expert witnesses to support injury claims against his corporate client's superior resources. Catherine noticed Chen's dismissive attitude and obvious assumptions about her capabilities based on appearance, rather than evidence confirming her expectation that courtroom proceedings would test her medical knowledge against legal prejudice that equated poverty with ignorance. Judge Morrison's impatient demeanor during morning calendar calls indicated rushed proceedings that might prevent adequate presentation of complex medical evidence, requiring detailed explanation and technical expertise that homeless appearance would undermine. Judge Morrison immediately demonstrated bias when Catherine began presenting her case using precise medical terminology to describe Marcus's injuries, interrupting her with obvious skepticism about her qualifications to make clinical assessments. Ms. Morse, are you claiming medical expertise? Morrison asked dismissively, while defense attorney Chen smirked at what they viewed as homeless woman pretending to possess professional knowledge she clearly couldn't have based on her appearance and circumstances. Catherine's accurate use of terms like retroperitoneal hematoma and hemodynamic instability was dismissed as internet research rather than authentic medical training that her surgical background provided. Attorney Chen escalated the mockery by challenging Catherine's medical knowledge, directly demanding proof of qualifications she couldn't provide since her medical license had been revoked following the malpractice lawsuit that destroyed her career. Your Honor, plaintiff is clearly attempting to mislead the court by pretending medical expertise, Chen argued, while Catherine's detailed understanding of trauma protocols and diagnostic procedures was treated as elaborate fraud rather than authentic knowledge from 20 years of surgical practice. Her precise clinical observations about Marcus's condition were dismissed as coached testimony, despite their obvious accuracy and technical sophistication. The courtroom's hostility peaked when Judge Morrison threatened sanctions for Catherine's fraudulent representation of medical expertise, creating legal crisis where her authentic knowledge was being criminalized because her appearance didn't match expectations about medical professionals. Ms. Morse continuing this charade of medical knowledge could result in contempt charges. Morrison warned, while spectators laughed at homeless woman who claimed surgical training that her circumstances obviously disproved. Catherine's desperate attempts to prove her medical expertise through detailed technical knowledge only reinforced assumptions that she was mentally ill or deliberately deceptive rather than genuinely qualified professional fallen on hard times. The courtroom atmosphere became increasingly hostile as Catherine's medical knowledge triggered disbelief and ridicule from legal professionals who couldn't reconcile her expertise with her homeless appearance, creating kangaroo court environment where evidence mattered less than appearance-based credibility. Court reporter Janet Mills struggled to transcribe Catherine's technical medical terminology accurately, while bailiff Rodriguez exchanged knowing looks with other court personnel who viewed the proceedings as entertainment rather than legitimate legal dispute requiring serious consideration. "This woman is clearly delusional," Chen whispered loudly enough for jury to hear, creating prejudicial environment where Catherine's medical knowledge was being reframed as mental illness rather than authentic expertise that circumstances had obscured but not eliminated. Spectators in the gallery began laughing openly at Catherine's detailed clinical assessments, treating her medical knowledge as comedy show rather than legitimate testimony from qualified professional whose circumstances didn't match their expectations about medical expertise. Local news reporter Sarah Kim began filming what she assumed would be human interest story about homeless woman's delusions of medical grandeur, not understanding that she was documenting systematic legal discrimination against qualified professional whose appearance prevented recognition of her authentic capabilities. Facing systematic ridicule while presenting legitimate medical evidence tested every lesson medical training had taught Catherine about maintaining professional dignity under pressure while advocating for patients who needed her expertise despite hostile environments. The courtroom's mockery forced Catherine to articulate medical knowledge in simpler terms without compromising accuracy, translating complex clinical concepts for legal audience that couldn't understand technical terminology but insisted on dismissing it as fraudulent rather than educational. Her response to legal discrimination revealed character developed through medical practice. She maintained clinical objectivity while facing personal attacks that challenged her identity, expertise, and right to participate in justice system that benefited from her knowledge while rejecting her person. The confrontation crystallized her understanding of societal prejudice. Professional expertise meant nothing without appropriate social status, creating systems where knowledge was valued only when it came from sources that met appearance, expectations, rather than actual qualifications. Catherine's medical identity strengthened under attack, reminding her that healing knowledge remained valuable regardless of society's judgment about her worth, and that her expertise could help people even when institutions refused to recognize or validate her professional capabilities. As Catherine's medical testimony faced complete dismissal and potential criminal sanctions for fraudulent expertise, the courtroom situation approached crisis where authentic knowledge would be legally punished because appearance didn't match professional expectations that society maintained about medical qualifications. Judge Morrison's growing anger at Catherine's persistence in using medical terminology suggested imminent contempt citation that would jail her for demonstrating expertise that homeless status apparently invalidated through appearance-based credibility assessment rather than factual evaluation. Attorney Chen's success in portraying Catherine's medical knowledge as delusional created legal precedent where qualified professionals could be criminalized for possessing expertise that their circumstances made socially unacceptable to recognize or validate through institutional processes. The courtroom's collective ridicule of authentic medical expertise represented broader societal failure to recognize value in people whose circumstances didn't match expectations, creating systems where knowledge was dismissed when it came from sources that challenged assumptions about professional appearance and social status. Catherine's case was becoming a cautionary tale about how legal systems could criminalize authentic expertise when it appeared in unexpected packages, transforming qualified professionals into criminals for possessing knowledge that society couldn't accommodate within rigid social categories and appearance-based judgments. Judge Morrison's patience reached its breaking point as Catherine continued presenting detailed medical evidence using clinical terminology that the court viewed as elaborate deception rather than authentic expertise, creating legal crisis where knowledge itself was being criminalized. Ms. Morse, this court will not tolerate fraudulent representation of medical credentials. Morrison declared while preparing contempt citation that would jail Catherine for possessing knowledge that her homeless appearance made legally unacceptable to acknowledge or validate. Attorney Chen seized the moment to demand criminal investigation of Catherine's medical impersonation, transforming civil litigation into potential felony prosecution where authentic expertise would be punished because society couldn't reconcile professional knowledge with homeless circumstances. Your Honor, this woman's persistent claims of medical expertise constitute fraud against this court and dangerous misrepresentation that could harm public safety. Chen argued while Catherine's years of surgical training and life-saving medical practice were being reframed as criminal activity. The courtroom erupted in laughter as Morrison threatened immediate arrest for Catherine's continuing deception about medical qualifications, creating spectacle where homeless woman's authentic knowledge became entertainment for legal professionals who couldn't recognize expertise when it appeared outside expected social packages. Catherine faced impossible choice: abandon her medical knowledge to avoid criminal prosecution or continue defending expertise that legal system was treating as criminal fraud because her circumstances didn't match professional appearance expectations that society required for recognizing medical qualifications. The crisis had escalated beyond civil litigation to criminal jeopardy, where Catherine's medical expertise was being legally redefined as dangerous deception that threatened public safety through homeless woman's audacity in possessing knowledge that her social status couldn't legitimately support. Standing in the courtroom facing immediate arrest for possessing medical knowledge that her homeless appearance made legally unacceptable, Catherine confronted the fundamental choice between abandoning her professional identity or accepting criminal prosecution for authentic expertise. The safe choice was capitulation, apologize for pretending medical knowledge, accept defeat in her lawsuit, and disappear back into homeless invisibility where society preferred her to remain without challenging assumptions about professional qualifications and social status. But Catherine realized that abandoning her medical expertise would validate every prejudice about homeless individuals while betraying the knowledge that remained her only valuable contribution to society, despite circumstances that obscured its worth. If I deny my medical training, I'm telling every qualified professional that their expertise becomes worthless when circumstances change, Catherine thought, while Judge Morrison prepared an arrest warrant for her fraudulent medical claims. Her decision, crystallized around deeper truth society needed her medical knowledge even when it couldn't recognize or validate the expertise that homelessness had disguised but not eliminated through circumstances beyond her professional control. The ultimate stakes transcended her personal situation, whether qualified professionals would be criminalized for possessing expertise that social status couldn't support, or whether knowledge itself had value regardless of the circumstances surrounding those who possessed and offered it. Catherine's choice would determine whether authentic expertise could survive social prejudice, or whether appearance-based discrimination would eliminate qualified professionals from participation in systems that needed their knowledge but couldn't accommodate their circumstances. Catherine made the choice that would validate authentic expertise over social prejudice, maintain her medical knowledge regardless of criminal consequences, trusting that truth would eventually overcome appearance-based discrimination. Your Honor, I am Dr. Catherine Morse, former Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery at Seattle Presbyterian Hospital. She announced with dignity that transcended her circumstances. My medical expertise is not fraud. It's the result of 20 years saving lives before circumstances beyond my control destroyed my career. Her transformation from apologetic homeless woman to confident medical professional created cognitive dissonance that silenced courtroom mockery as her authentic authority became undeniable despite appearance that had triggered discrimination. But her declaration increased legal jeopardy as Judge Morrison viewed her persistence as contempt, requiring immediate punishment for continuing medical fraud that challenged court authority and social assumptions about professional qualifications. Catherine's courage in claiming her medical identity represented fundamental challenge to systems that discarded qualified professionals based on circumstances rather than capabilities, proving that expertise couldn't be eliminated through social rejection or appearance-based prejudice. Her dignity under attack demonstrated that authentic knowledge retained value regardless of society's judgment about those who possessed it. As Judge Morrison prepared contempt citation that would jail Catherine for claiming medical expertise, her appearance couldn't support the courtroom door opened to admit Dr. James Harrison, Chief of Surgery at Seattle Presbyterian Hospital, arriving as character witness for different case scheduled after Catherine's hearing. Dr. Harrison's presence immediately commanded respect that Catherine's homeless appearance had prevented, as his medical authority and professional standing created instant credibility that 20 years of surgical expertise couldn't achieve when obscured by poverty and social rejection. Catherine recognized her former colleague and friend who had been forced to distance himself from her during the malpractice crisis that destroyed her career, but whose medical expertise could validate her knowledge if he chose to acknowledge their professional relationship. Dr. Harrison will now understand why homeless individuals can't receive justice. Catherine thought while facing arrest for possessing medical knowledge that society refused to recognize when it appeared in unexpected social packages. The convergence of Catherine's legal crisis with Dr. Harrison's court appearance created perfect opportunity for professional recognition that could either validate her expertise or confirm her complete rejection by medical community that had abandoned her. Dr. Harrison's entrance created immediate tension as Catherine faced recognition by a colleague who possessed authority to validate her medical expertise, but also professional pressure to maintain distance from disgraced former surgeon whose association could damage his career. Judge Morrison paused contempt proceedings to acknowledge Dr. Harrison's professional status, while Catherine waited to see whether medical community would finally support her expertise or continue social rejection that had enabled legal discrimination. Dr. Harrison, this court is dealing with individual claiming fraudulent medical expertise. Morrison explained while providing opportunity for medical authority to either support or condemn Catherine's knowledge, claims that legal system couldn't evaluate independently. Attorney Chen attempted to influence Dr. Harrison's response. "Doctor, this homeless woman has been impersonating medical professional claiming surgical expertise that her circumstances obviously disprove through appearance and social status." The courtroom fell silent as medical authority confronted authentic expertise disguised by circumstances that challenged social assumptions about professional qualifications and the relationship between knowledge and appearance in credibility assessment. Catherine's fate now depended on whether medical colleague would recognize authentic expertise or join social rejection that prioritized appearance over actual knowledge and professional capability. Dr. Harrison studied Catherine carefully while processing the impossible contradiction between her homeless appearance and the familiar medical terminology he'd heard her using with precision that only authentic surgical training could provide through years of practice and education. "Catherine," Dr. Harrison asked, with growing recognition that transformed courtroom dynamics as medical authority acknowledged homeless woman's authentic professional identity despite circumstances that had obscured but not eliminated her expertise. His recognition created immediate silence as spectators realized they had been witnessing discrimination against qualified medical professional whose circumstances didn't match their expectations about surgical expertise and professional social status. Judge Morrison's confusion was obvious. "Dr. Harrison, do you know this individual?" His question indicated growing uncertainty about contempt proceedings against someone whom respected medical authority was acknowledging as legitimate professional colleague. Catherine felt years of rejection and humiliation beginning to lift as authentic recognition finally validated expertise that society had dismissed based on appearance rather than actual knowledge and professional capability. Dr. Harrison's recognition created immediate complications as he faced choice between professional association with disgraced colleague or continued social rejection that enabled ongoing discrimination against qualified medical professional whose circumstances had changed but expertise remained intact. Catherine Morse was one of our finest cardiothoracic surgeons. Dr. Harrison stated while creating professional validation that challenged every assumption the courtroom had made about homeless woman's medical claims and authentic expertise. But his acknowledgement raised questions about why qualified surgeon was homeless and representing herself in small claims court rather than practicing medicine at prestigious hospital, where her expertise belonged according to social expectations. Attorney Chen attempted damage control. Dr. Harrison, surely you're not suggesting this homeless individual possesses legitimate medical credentials? His question reflected disbelief that professional expertise could exist in circumstances that social prejudice couldn't accommodate. Judge Morrison faced complete reversal of assumptions as respected medical authority validated homeless woman's expertise, while legal system had been preparing to criminalize authentic knowledge based on appearance rather than factual assessment of professional qualifications. The courtroom atmosphere shifted dramatically as mockery transformed to embarrassment about discrimination against qualified professional whose circumstances hadn't eliminated expertise that society had refused to recognize. The climactic revelation occurred when Dr. Harrison disclosed that Catherine had performed life-saving emergency surgery on Judge Morrison's daughter 3 years earlier, creating personal connection that transformed abstract professional recognition into deeply personal gratitude and validation. Catherine, you saved Emma's life during that cardiac emergency at the Children's Hospital, Dr. Harrison announced while providing testimony that proved homeless woman's medical expertise had directly benefited the judge who was threatening to jail her for possessing knowledge. Judge Morrison's emotional response was immediate and profound. You're the surgeon who operated on my daughter when no one else would take the case. His question indicated growing realization that he had been criminalizing medical expertise that had saved his own family. Catherine's response showed professional humility. Emergency cardiac surgery was required. Any qualified surgeon would have provided the same care. But Dr. Harrison corrected her modesty. No other surgeon would attempt that procedure. Catherine's skill saved Emma's life. The courtroom's atmosphere transformed completely as personal testimony validated homeless woman's medical expertise while revealing that her knowledge had directly protected people who were now discriminating against her based on circumstances rather than capabilities. Morrison's recognition of Catherine as his daughter's savior created powerful emotional impact that transcended legal proceedings and social prejudice about professional qualifications. Judge Morrison's personal testimony about Catherine's life-saving surgical expertise created complete transformation in courtroom attitudes as discrimination gave way to recognition of authentic medical knowledge that had been disguised by circumstances but never eliminated. His detailed account of Catherine's surgical skill and professional dedication provided validation that restored her credibility, while educating legal professionals about the qualified individuals that social prejudice often discarded based on appearance rather than actual capability. Dr. Morse's expertise saved my daughter's life when other surgeons refused the case, Morrison announced while providing judicial recognition that transformed Catherine from criminal defendant to honored medical professional, whose circumstances didn't diminish expertise. Attorney Chen faced complete reversal of his discrimination strategy as SeaTac Transit Authority's defense collapsed under weight of authentic medical testimony from qualified surgeon whose homeless status had been irrelevant to her professional capability and knowledge. Dr. Harrison's advocacy established Catherine's professional credentials, while Morrison's personal gratitude created judicial support that protected her from further discrimination based on appearance rather than actual qualifications and expertise. The breakthrough extended beyond individual vindication. Catherine's recognition created precedent for protecting qualified professionals whose circumstances might obscure but never eliminate authentic expertise that society needed regardless of social packaging. Catherine's vindication transformed the courtroom as Judge Morrison apologized for discriminatory treatment while granting her lawsuit victory and ordering SeaTac Transit to pay maximum damages for Marcus's injuries that her medical expertise had accurately diagnosed. Dr. Harrison offered Catherine consulting opportunities that would restore her professional income and medical authority while accommodating circumstances that prevented traditional hospital employment but couldn't eliminate surgical knowledge. Most importantly, Catherine's case established legal precedent protecting qualified professionals whose expertise remained valuable regardless of circumstances that might obscure their knowledge but never invalidate their authentic capabilities and contributions. Catherine's courtroom vindication created immediate media attention as news organizations covered the story of homeless surgeon whose medical expertise had been criminalized by legal system until personal recognition revealed her authentic qualifications and life-saving professional history. Judge Morrison implemented new court procedures requiring evaluation of claimed expertise through evidence rather than appearance, protecting qualified professionals whose circumstances might obscure their knowledge while preventing discrimination based on social status rather than actual capability. Dr. Harrison established consulting position for Catherine that utilized her surgical expertise while accommodating her circumstances, proving that medical knowledge retained value regardless of traditional employment limitations that homeless status might create. Seattle Presbyterian Hospital created outreach program connecting homeless individuals with medical professionals who could provide health care and identify qualified personnel whose circumstances had hidden their expertise from systems that needed their knowledge and capabilities. Catherine's case influenced legal precedents throughout Washington state as courts recognized the importance of evaluating claimed expertise through evidence rather than appearance-based assumptions about professional qualifications. 2 years later, Catherine's story influenced national policies for evaluating professional expertise in legal proceedings as courts implemented evidence-based assessment rather than appearance-based credibility determination that had discriminated against qualified individuals whose circumstances didn't match expectations. Medical organizations created programs for supporting healthcare professionals whose circumstances prevented traditional practice, but whose expertise remained valuable for community service consultation and education that could benefit society while restoring professional dignity. Law schools incorporated Catherine's case into curricula teaching about appearance-based bias and the importance of evidence evaluation rather than social prejudice in determining credibility and professional qualifications during legal proceedings. Homeless advocacy organizations adopted Catherine's legal strategy for protecting qualified individuals whose expertise could contribute to society when properly recognized rather than dismissed based on circumstances that obscured but didn't eliminate professional capabilities. The case established national precedent for protecting professional expertise, regardless of personal circumstances, proving that knowledge retained value independent of social status or appearance that might influence credibility assessment without reflecting actual qualifications. Catherine evolved from rejected homeless individual to respected medical consultant whose expertise was properly valued despite circumstances that had temporarily obscured her professional capabilities and social standing within medical community that had abandoned her. Her legal victory restored professional dignity while proving that authentic expertise transcended circumstances when society learned to recognize value regardless of appearance or social status that might initially obscure qualifications. Medical knowledge serves humanity regardless of the circumstances surrounding those who possess it. Catherine often tells audiences, healing doesn't require social status. It requires skill, knowledge, and commitment to helping others regardless of personal cost. Catherine's story proves that authentic expertise transcends circumstances and that society benefits when systems recognize value based on actual capability rather than appearance. True justice requires evaluating qualifications through evidence rather than prejudice that discards qualified professionals when their circumstances don't match social expectations. Epilogue. Today, Dr. Catherine Morse operates the Seattle Street Medicine Clinic, where her surgical expertise serves homeless individuals while training medical students about healthcare delivery outside traditional hospital settings. Her cardboard sign now reads, "Former surgeon, here to help," attracting both patients who need medical care and medical professionals who want to learn from her unique perspective on healthcare accessibility. The courtroom, where she was nearly jailed for possessing medical knowledge, now hosts continuing education seminars about recognizing professional expertise regardless of circumstances, with Judge Morrison frequently speaking about the importance of evidence-based credibility assessment. Dr. Harrison remains her strongest advocate and collaborator, proving that authentic professional relationships can survive circumstances that test but don't eliminate mutual respect and recognition. Catherine's consulting work has influenced hospital policies nationwide, demonstrating that qualified professionals can contribute valuable expertise even when traditional employment isn't possible due to circumstances beyond their control. Her case continues inspiring legal reforms that protect professional knowledge from discrimination while proving that the most valuable expertise often comes from those whose experience transcends conventional professional boundaries, and that society's greatest resources are sometimes hidden among those it overlooks through prejudice that mistakes appearance for capability.